In this place, wild and untamed, some of the most thrilling falconry can be witnessed. The falconers who spend their time in these hills know what a unique and important place it is. That tiny black dot in the raging wind? A golden eagle soaring above her falconer in her most natural environment, doing what comes most naturally to her. However, we currently don't know whether she and others like her will be able to hunt here again. In January 2021, Scottish Parliament laid down regulation to protect mountain hare in Scotland. 2 months later, it became law. A piece of legislation brought in to address a totally different issue had the sudden and unjust side effect of making a sustainable and legitimate branch of falconry illegal. No longer could these birds with their falconers continue to exhibit their natural instincts and behaviour within the reasonable framework of the law and principles of sustainable hunting. Falconry began over 5,000 years ago. It has been practiced in the UK since before 600 AD and before Scotland became a country. It also qualifies as a protected belief, and it is also recognised by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. No consultation of falconers was offered and no mechanism for licensing put in place. Falconers had to face the sudden, heartbreaking reality that their long-lived companions were now grounded for an immeasurable amount of time. A good friend and long-time falconer called Barry, who himself has been actively flying birds of prey for over 30 years, put together a carefully considered and passionate petition to address the issue and raise it to the Scottish Government's Public Petitions Committee. This was the only way we could engage the Scottish Government and have a chance to effect any change. Barry knew that unaddressed, this legislation would condemn hundreds of trained birds of prey to enclosed aviaries for the rest of their long lives. The government clearly had not anticipated this fallout, and Barry knew a working group was needed to be put together. So for the last 2 years, a small group of falconers have been working very hard behind the scenes to present clear, factual information and address the committee's many questions at each meeting held. In turn, the committee presented questions to the government and asked for statements from other connected and relevant organisations so that they could weigh up the issue. Time and time again, the petition was upheld. You can visit the Scottish Parliament website and read in detail the many submissions from falconers explaining the issue further. You may ask why we've spent so much time fighting for something that appears to be a recreational hunting activity. It's so much more than that. Eagles are large, intelligent and powerful raptors with a wingspan averaging at nearly 7 foot. Captive bred eagles live well into their 30s, and it is crucial that their welfare needs are met for the whole of their life. You may also ask what further benefits there are to hunting with eagles. By working with and flying these incredible birds, we can learn a great deal about their behaviour and psychology to help us breed and conserve wild eagle populations, something which is actively being done. Without a hands-on approach, we are unable to help their wild counterparts to the same degree of success. At times, the submissions from government have been very frustrating to read. For example, suggestions were made that the eagles could hunt alternative quarry such as birds, rabbits and stoats, which are simply not suitable, safe or appropriate quarry for eagles. Rabbits do not occur in the high places that upland falconry takes place, in the vast mountainous areas where eagles are flown. This aside, rabbits are very, very unsporting quarry for eagles. Grouse are quarry only suitable for falcons. If we were to hunt grouse, or indeed try to find a rabbit on a mountain with our eagle 1,000 feet above our heads, how do we tell it that it must ignore its natural quarry of thousands of years and instead hunt something different? If the eagle does follow its instinct and hunts the hare that lives beside the grouse on the mountain, the falconer becomes a criminal. Stoats are simply not an acceptable quarry for birds of prey. They are tiny, virtually invisible by day, and bite savagely, risking injury to the falconer's birds. Government also suggested that falconers could apply for licences in a bid to protect forestry. This would mean eagles flying in tight wooded areas wholly unsuitable to their abilities risking serious injury and, ironically, also encouraging the birds to hunt where other protected species reside, such as pine martens and red squirrels, who are protected by the same legislation that mountain hare are. When the committee sought clarification as to the circumstances in which falconers may face prosecution should their bird take a mountain hare, the government stated falconers should avoid flying their birds of prey in areas where mountain hares were likely to be present, directing us to a map that shows the latest published information on the distribution of mountain hares in Scotland. The mapped area provided actually contradicts the government's own claims on the scarcity of mountain hares by showing their massive range covering approximately 97.5% of Scotland. Already we are seeing peer-reviewed evidence that the information that was submitted in order to railroad this legislation through was at best flawed. The hare count data, coming from the Peak District in England where new counting methods have been developed, is showing a huge disparity between the counting methods used, with the most recent method showing on average a population at least double, and in one case a population that is 30 times higher. It is fair to ask whether the taking of no more than 1,000 mountain hares per year by falconers would actually have any significant or even measurable impact on a hare population at all. In December, the committee was joined by Barry in person in order to take evidence directly. He did a fantastic job in showing both his personal passion and the wider in-depth knowledge of the subject, answering the committee's wide-ranging questions in a clear and level manner. This left the committee with no option but to continue to pursue a solution for falconers after Barry's answers clearly demonstrated the multi-layered issues at hand. The entire list of issues could be resolved with the granting of our request that the legislation be amended, with the line as appears elsewhere in the Wildlife and Countryside Act, except for the purpose of falconry. So this is where I ask for your help. The petition has now been reopened for signatures. Now, more than ever, we have a chance to highlight this issue in our final push to seek an amendment in law. It feels very much like a David and Goliath situation, but the aim of this petition is simply to allow the continued practice of falconry in Scotland and her mountainous places without risk of prosecution. As someone who is actively involved in this petition and the fight to protect Upland Falconry in Scotland, my home, I ask whether you consider signing the petition link below. You can sign from anywhere in the world, it just takes seconds and it's totally free to do. If you've got this far, thank you. I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen. This is a branch of falconry I'm very passionate about. I've spent many times in the hills with my birds and my friends, and I cannot bear to let it slip away into the history books.
I've got the camera on, but no one can actually see anything. However, this big bunch of noise is eight people in one Land Rover, because the other one broke down at the top of the mountain. So now we've all had to cram in, all the birds in the back, and the dog's having to run down the hill. But it's